welcome to My Health and I. My name is Catherine and I'm a health coach. So on this channel we're going to be talking about all things health, how to stay healthy, how to stay happy, and how what we eat and our lifestyle impacts our health. So come on with me as we're going to be sharing evidence-based facts, yes, backed by science. So I'm going to be telling you and teaching you and sharing my wealth of knowledge with you, and it promises to be a wonderful ride. So stick with me on this channel. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on your post notifications. Give me a like if you love any of my videos, and yeah, see you in the video. You know, sweet tooth isn't necessarily related with our taste bud, our palate, or our taste receptor members. It's more like a sweet brain. You see, we crave these sweet things in our mouth because of the response that we get. And the evidence is pretty interesting how sweet things affect our brain. So if we want to control this sweet tooth, or if we want to control the sweet brain, there are some evidence-based things that we have to put in place. And yeah, in this video we're going to be talking about how we develop a sweet tooth and how to control the sweet tooth. So yeah, it does have a little bit to do with the taste receptors we have, and we have these two receptors in particular when it comes to sweet things. Yeah, the taste 1 receptor member 2 and taste 1 receptor member 3. They are very closely linked with our brain. When we consume something sweet, there's usually a strong electrical signal to our brain, telling the brain that we are satisfied and we are scratching that dopamine itch, so to speak. So a lot of times our cravings are less about what's happening in our taste receptors and more about that dopamine itch that we're trying to scratch. Now the interesting thing is that these responses can occur in the absence of taste receptors, and that's where we need to get more understanding on how to fight our cravings. So there's a strong neurological pathway with sugar. Yes, there's a study published in the journal Cell that took a look at mammalian taste receptors, and it uncovered some very intriguing stuff. They look at mice. Yeah, it's not a human study, but this tells us a lot because we're also mammals. They give them either water or a sugary water. Invariably, the mice chose the sweet beverage, that's the sugar water. They gave the mice an option to have an artificially sweetened water. They still went for the sugar water. And so the sugar water was actually doing something there. So the glucose was actually triggering something, a response for them that the artificially sweetened water wasn't doing. So it was clear that the sugar and the neurological pathway there was something going on. And so it wasn't just the taste receptors. So it even gets more wild because they examined knockout mice. And what are knockout mice? Knockout mice are mice that don't have the taste receptor members. And guess what? They still went for the sugary water. So this tells us that even without these taste receptors, that even without our taste, because our brain likes sugar, so chances are that you would still crave sweet things whether or not your taste buds are functional. So if you think about our brain as having these different regions with light bulbs, and you know, when the light is on is when you actually took some sugar, and when it goes off is when there is no sugar. You know, your brain would always want to have the lights on, just like you're in a house full of light, like you're accustomed to having lights on in your house, and suddenly you turn the lights off, you're going to want to turn the lights on, right? So these regions of our brain in this case is the caudal nucleus of the solitary tract. This is the area that really wants to be lit all of the time. So when you train it to be consistent with having the lights on, it's going to keep requesting that the lights are on. And then there are specific glucose transporters, in this case the SGLT1, that really helps the lights stay on. So having sugar without the taste receptors can absolutely trigger a response to want more light, and that's why the dopamine region of our brain always wants to keep the lights on, just to trigger that response. So let's look at how to control your sweet tooth. First on my list is apple cider vinegar. It's very powerful because it has the acetic acid. Check this out. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that apple cider vinegar has a 2-time effect on hunger. It blunts hunger, and it also helps negate the negative effects of eating too. So a double whammy effect. Here they took a control with no apple cider vinegar, and other groups with varying degrees of concentration in terms of acetic acid. Essentially, they took potent concentrations of apple cider vinegar. They had all groups consume 50 grams of carbohydrates from white bread, and they measured their insulin and glucose levels about 120 minutes after consuming that. The interesting part was that for the acetic acid groups, there was an inverse relationship with how much acetic acid they consumed and how high their glucose and insulin spikes were. So the more the apple cider vinegar concentration, the less the glucose response and the less the insulin response. But that wasn't just it. They also looked at satiety and they found the same thing, dose dependent, demonstrating that there's a few different pathways going on here. So apple cider vinegar reduces the hunger, but it also reduces the glycemic response to it, which could also mitigate the cravings later on down the line. So it's a little bit of a preamp here, okay? So you could have it beforehand, so you can control the blood sugar a little bit more, so you don't have the cravings that comes with the blood sugar crashing and your brain naturally wanting to fix it with something. Now, the way apple cider vinegar does this is twofold. It delays gastric emptying, meaning that it slows down how long it takes for something to leave the stomach and the small intestine and begin those additional phases of digestion. Additionally, it happens to blunt some of the enzyme activity. So if you blunt the enzyme activity, then you're slowing down how fast carbohydrate gets absorbed, and again, you're reducing that rise and that crash of your glucose and insulin levels. The next one will have to be stress. Monitoring stress and reducing stress. Yes, this is a huge one. So there was a study published in the journal Psychoneuroendocrinology that took a look at 59 women. They gave them an artificial stress stimulus. Yes, they stimulated stress in a group, and then they had a control group. Well, they found that there was a direct relationship with increases in salivary cortisol and how much they ate. Now, the most interesting part is that they not only ate more, but they tended to crave sweet things. So stress seems to be a huge one here. So there's a relationship here between stress and the sweet tooth that we have. So looking at the mechanisms, it could be a number of things, but the most powerful mechanism we see here is that there's a pretty strong relationship with the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So when you have an increase in the kind of stimulation of that axis, there's an increase in what is called neuropeptide Y. Now, neuropeptide Y is strongly related with hunger signals. Now, with hunger, it's very difficult because we have lots of different confounding factors. So we can't say for certain that neuropeptide Y is 100% the culprit, but it's one of the things that we notice. And so when there's stress, this gut peptide increases and it tends to increase hunger. Well, it's not fun because it's hard actually to manage stress. So what's a more practical way of controlling our sweet tooth? Chia seeds. Now, if you have chia seeds, it could make a pretty profound difference when you're hungry and in your overall sweet tooth cravings. According to a study published in the journal Nutrition Research and Practice, they took a look at yogurt with no chia seeds and compared it to yogurt with 7 grams of chia seeds and yogurt with 14 grams of chia seeds, and individuals consumed this. They took a look at what is called a visual analog scale, which in my opinion is the ideal way to look at perceived responses to things. They found that both the 7 grams and the 14 grams of chia seed groups had very similar levels of satiety, which was significantly better than the yogurt group alone. So that tells us that it could be dose dependent. But then if you had a lot more, there wasn't much of a difference between 7 grams of chia seeds and 14 grams of chia seeds. So just a little bit of chia seeds seems to make a pretty powerful effect in terms of hunger. And now that's where the fiber aspect certainly is going to gelatinize and slow down digestion. There's also some speculation among the research groups that it could have something to do with the omega-3s or even the polyunsaturated fats that are in chia. This could influence gut peptides. So similar to the neuropeptide neuropeptide. Why? There could be a deeper thing going on there. The kinds of fats that are in chia seeds, and in conjunction with, of course, the fiber that definitely satiates. So yeah, this is quite interesting. This explains to us, and here we can understand why 7 grams and 14 grams doesn't even make much of a difference, because it's not much about the volume of the food that we consume, but the gut peptides and how they are actually able to absorb these things that we do take in. Go for a walk. If you go for a walk, it not only occupies your brain, but going for a walk might just allow those glucose receptors and those glucose transporters to translocate to the membrane of a cell, allowing glucose to come into the cell more gradually, and it kind of stimulates a more natural, healthy response, so you're not craving food too much. Now, another thing that could help mitigate the sweet tooth and the sugar craving could be removing every sweet thing from your environment, because now we understand that sugar acts just like a drug. So like any other kind of addiction, the best thing would be to remove sugar from around you. Remove those sweets, those candy, chocolate. Don't have them close by. So whenever you feel like taking something sweet, you could either go for other options that I've said in this video. You could go for chia seeds, you could go for other things. And remember also that some food cravings are linked to nutrient deficiency. So if you're constantly craving sweets, chances are that your body lacks adequate amounts of magnesium, chromium, or tryptophan, or all of these 3 nutrients. Now, these nutrients are found in whole natural foods such as cruciferous vegetables, eggs, beans, liver, poultry, legumes, and grains. So craving bread might be a nitrogen deficiency, and this could be gotten from fish, meat, or beans. So thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for listening up to this time. I hope you now understand why we develop the sweet tooth, and also how to control it and how to make better choices. So see you next time. Stay healthy, stay blessed.